Understanding Musharakah. In this module, we look at Musharakah, a business partnership permitted by the Sharia. Let's begin with some introduction. In general terms, in both conventional and Islamic finance, a business partnership may be defined as a joint venture or project between two or more parties, entered into with the aim of making a profit. The Sharia allows us a great deal of freedom to set up business partnerships in a wide range of productive activities. Nevertheless, to operate a Sharia-compliant business partnership, certain conditions and some restrictions must be observed. There are two well-known broad formats of business organization permitted by the Sharia that may be used to execute business partnerships. Musharakah, the focus of the current module, is one of them. The other is Mudarabah, covered in a separate set of modules. Both are based on profit sharing between the parties who participate in the business venture. Let's take a look at our learning objectives for this topic. By the end of this topic, you will be able to identify the different types of Musharakah, distinguish between their mode of operation, specify appropriate forms of capital contribution to a Musharakah, explain the management of a Musharakah, formulate profit and loss sharing ratios between partners, identify the conditions related to a termination of a Musharakah, and apply the specific rules for profit sharing after termination. Let's begin by understanding the basic features of a Musharakah. We'll cover some of these features in more detail later on as well. A Musharakah is a partnership that is set up between two or more parties, usually to conduct business or trade. Musharakahs are created most typically by an investment of capital or by pooling together expertise or goodwill. Profits are shared between the partners based on their proportion of ownership in the business, as well as to the extent of their participation in the business. Losses are always shared in proportion to the capital invested by the partners. Okay, let's move on. Do you know what the various types of Musharakahs are? Let's find out. As a broad definition, Musharakahs may be divided into two types: Shirkatul Aqd and Shirkatul Milk. Shirkatul Aqd is a partnership to enter into a joint venture of business and trade. This is the partnership that we are commonly familiar with, in which two or more parties enter into a contract to engage in a defined business activity seeking to make a profit. For instance, two parties jointly purchase a commercial property, so that each party puts in 50% of the cost of the purchase. What is important to understand here is that while both parties as co-owners each possess 50% undivided ownership in the property, their respective ownership portions cannot physically be specified. Thus, for example, it cannot be said for a building with 2 floors that one party owns the ground floor and the other the first floor. The ownership is defined to be 50% and undivided, such that each part of the building is equally owned. However, for practical purposes and based on mutual agreement, one party may manage the upper story and the other the lower story. Okay, let's move ahead and look at an important issue relating to the duration of Musharakahs. In other words, how long may a Musharakah be established for? The answer is, Musharakahs may be ongoing or temporary. An ongoing musharakah is the most common form of musharakah and is also sometimes referred to as an open-ended or permanent musharakah. Usually, this refers to partnerships where there is no intention of terminating or concluding the business venture at any point, with a typical example being equity participation. Nevertheless, all partners do have the option of exiting the business at any point they want. This is usually done by the remaining partner or partners purchasing the share of the individual who is leaving the musharakah.